Hello. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the timeline of Genesis. There's many notable events in Genesis, creation, the flood, the Tower of Babel, and many others. So I'm going to attempt to keep track of when everything happened, um, and then how many years later the next event happened, and so on and so forth until we reach the end. First, obviously, was creation. There's a lot of debate about when and how creation happened. I believe that God created everything in a week. That is what he said, so I believe him. Anyway, after creation, you have Adam and Eve, then the fall. Obviously, nobody really knows how long after Adam and Eve were created did the fall occur. There's a lot of debate about this, but obviously that's all just speculation. Nobody really knows. Then there is Cain and Abel. The Bible doesn't explicitly say how long after the fall did Eve have Cain and Abel. However, in Genesis 5:3, it says that Adam was 130 years old when Seth was born. That marks the beginning of the genealogy from Adam to Noah. So, going from that, you can say that sometime before Adam was 130 years old, Cain and Abel were born. Next in the timeline is the flood. There are many different timelines that say when the flood occurred, but that depends on what version of the Bible you use. The Masoretic text, which is the authoritative version of the Hebrew Bible used universally by Jews today, says that the flood occurred roughly 1600 years after creation. The Samaritan Pentateuch, which is a very old version of part of the Bible, puts the flood roughly at 1300 years after creation. Lastly, the Septuagint, which is the earliest Greek translation of the Bible that exists today, puts the flood at roughly 2,200 years after creation. So many different variations there, depending on which version of the Bible you use. After the flood comes the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel occurred only 100 to 300 years after the flood. Before doing this video, I thought it was, a much longer period of time. But apparently it was only 100 to 300 years after the flood. So, there's that. After the Tower of Babel comes Abraham. Abraham was born approximately 200 to 700 years after the Tower of Babel. Again, depending on whether you use the Masoretic text or the Septuagint. After Abraham, you have Isaac, and then Jacob, and then lastly Joseph. Each of those are, one person's lifetime, so however many years that is. Then Genesis, of course, ends with the death of Joseph. Just to kind of wrap things up on the timeline, it's important to remember that Moses wrote Genesis 300 to 400 years after the death of Joseph. So when you study a book of the Bible, it's important to keep in mind who wrote it and when it was written, so that you know whose perspective you are seeing everything from. That's all I have for you today. Tomorrow I think I'll cover God's covenant to Abraham and how God built Abraham's descendants into a great nation, just like he said he would. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you tomorrow.